You're staring at your screen right now, reading these words, existing in one place at one time. That's how reality works. That's how physics works. That's how everything works. Except it doesn't. Not anymore. On March 15th, 2024, a leaked document from the World Health Organization? Yes, the World Health Organization revealed something that should be impossible. An object designated 3I/Atlas, an interstellar visitor travelling through our solar system, has been detected in multiple locations simultaneously. Not close locations, not maybe we miscalculated locations. We're talking thousands of miles apart. Same timestamp, same object, different places. This isn't a measurement error. This isn't a calibration mistake. Over 17 independent observatories have confirmed it. The math checks out, the data is clean, and every single physicist who's seen it has the same reaction: this cannot be real. But it is. If this already has your mind spinning, do me a favour, like and subscribe if you want to dive deeper into mysteries like this. And drop a comment, where are you watching from right now? Because here's the thing, while you were reading this, 3I/Atlas just moved. Or did it? Let me take you back to where this impossible story began. December 19th, 2019, 11:47 p.m, Mauna Kea Observatory, Hawaii. Your doctor, Sarah Chen, and you've been staring at the same screen for 6 hours straight. Your coffee went cold 3 hours ago, your eyes are burning, and you're about to discover something that will make you question everything you learned in graduate school. The ATLAS telescope, that's Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System. Because astronomers love their acronyms, just flagged something unusual. At first, you think it's another near-Earth asteroid, maybe a piece of space debris. You've catalogued hundreds of these. This should be routine, but the velocity is wrong. You're looking at an object moving at 87 miles per second. For context, Earth orbits the Sun at about 80 miles per second. The fastest spacecraft humanity has ever built, the Parker Solar Probe, tops out at 120 miles per second, and it had to slingshot around the Sun multiple times to get there. This thing, it's just cruising. You run the trajectory backward. Standard protocol. Every object in our solar system has a history: where it came from, how it got here. Comets from the Oort cloud, asteroids from the belt between Mars and Jupiter. Everything has an origin story, except this one doesn't. The math takes you outside our solar system, way outside. This object came from interstellar space, the void between stars. And suddenly, you're not tired anymore. You're wide awake, because you're looking at only the second confirmed interstellar visitor in human history. The first one, Oumuamua, caused chaos back in 2017. Scientists couldn't agree on what it was. A comet, an asteroid. Some Harvard professor even suggested it might be an alien probe, which made everyone else roll their eyes so hard you could hear it. But here's the thing about Oumuamua: it behaved weird. It accelerated without any visible comet tail, like something was pushing it. We never figured out why. It left our solar system before we could get a good look. You're determined that won't happen again. You immediately alert the Minor Planet Center, the official clearinghouse for astronomical discoveries. Within hours, telescopes around the world swing toward this object. The European Southern Observatory in Chile, the Gemini Observatory, the Subaru Telescope. Even amateur astronomers with backyard setups start tracking it. They name it 3I/Atlas. The 3I means third interstellar object ever confirmed. Oumuamua was 1I, and a comet called Borisov was 2I. Atlas, because your telescope found it first. For 3 months, everything is normal. Well, normal for an interstellar comet rocketing through our solar system at impossible speeds. You're collecting data, measuring its brightness, its composition, its rotation. It's fascinating. Sure, but it's following all the rules. Physics is working exactly as it should. Then March 2020 hits. And I'm not talking about the pandemic, though, that's happening too, which is about to become very relevant to this story. I'm talking about what happens to 3I/ATLAS itself. On March 12th, the Hubble Space Telescope takes a closer look. NASA's been tracking this thing for months now, and they want high-resolution images. What they see makes no sense. 3I/ATLAS is breaking apart. Okay, you're thinking, comets do that sometimes. They get too close to the sun. The ice starts vaporizing, structural integrity fails, and they crumble. Happens all the time. Comet Shoemaker-Levy 9 famously broke into 21 pieces before smashing into Jupiter in 1994. Comets are fragile. But here's what's strange. 3I/ATLAS is still 91 million miles from the Sun. That's roughly the same distance as Earth. It shouldn't be breaking apart yet. The heat isn't intense enough. And when Hubble images it again on March 20th, it's split into at least 4 distinct fragments. By March 28th, those fragments have fragmented further. Dr. Kwanzi Ye from the University of Maryland, who's leading the Hubble observations, says something that sounds almost poetic. It's like watching a comet commit suicide in slow motion. But suicide implies intent, implies a reason, and nobody can figure out why this is happening. Then the world locks down. COVID-19 is spreading. Observatories are closing. Scientists are working from home. And in the chaos of a global pandemic, 3I/ATLAS kind of falls off the radar. Not completely, a few dedicated astronomers keep watching, but the intense, coordinated observation campaign grinds to a halt, which means almost nobody notices when things start getting really weird. Fast forward to August 2020, Dr. James Patterson at the Apache Point Observatory in New Mexico is doing routine follow-up observations. He's one of the few astronomers still with telescope access. He's tracking the largest fragment of 3I/ATLAS, the one designated 3I/ATLAS-A. He records its position right ascension 15H23M47S, declination plus 47 degree 1912. If that sounds like gibberish, think of it as GPS coordinates for space. 6 hours later, he checks again. The fragment should have moved. Objects in space don't sit still, and it has moved, but exactly where the math predicts. Great, everything's working. But then, his colleague in Australia, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, sends him an email. She's been tracking the same fragment from the Siding Spring Observatory. And she's got a problem. Her coordinates don't match his. At first, Patterson thinks it's a time zone mix-up. You'd be surprised how often that happens in international astronomy. But no, they're both using UTC, Universal Coordinated Time. They observed 3I/ATLAS-A at the exact same timestamp, and their measurements place it 400 miles apart. That's impossible. Physically, literally, fundamentally impossible. An object can't be in 2 places at once. That's not how macroscale physics works. Quantum particles can do this. Electrons can exist in superposition, being in multiple states simultaneously. But those are subatomic particles. We're talking about a chunk of rock and ice the size of a small mountain. Patterson's first instinct is to blame equipment failure. Maybe one of the telescopes had a calibration error. Maybe there was atmospheric distortion. Maybe someone typed the wrong numbers, so he emails 5 other observatories. Hey, can you guys check 3I/ATLAS-A's position for me? I think we've got a data glitch. All 5 observatories report back within 48 hours. All 5 have different coordinates, same time, same object, 6 different locations. Now, here's where you need to understand something about astronomers. They're extremely skeptical people. They have to be. They've been burned before by bad data, equipment malfunctions, and over-enthusiastic interpretations. Remember those faster-than-light neutrinos that turned out to be a loose cable? Or the alien megastructure around Tabby's star that was probably just dust? astronomers learn to trust nothing until it's been verified 17 different ways. So Patterson does what any good scientist would do. He assumes he's wrong. He spends weeks checking everything. Telescope alignment perfect. Timing systems synchronized. Atmospheric conditions accounted for. Starfield references correct. Everything checks out, which means either 6 different telescopes, operated by 6 different teams, in 6 different countries, all made the exact same type of error at the exact same time. Or 3I/Atlas is actually, genuinely, impossibly existing in multiple places at once. Patterson writes up his findings. He submits them to the Astrophysical Journal, and then he waits for the peer review process, which normally takes months. But remember, the world is still dealing with COVID. Journal editors are overwhelmed. The paper sits in a queue for 8 months. By the time it's published in April 2021, Patterson has accumulated even more data. And it's not just 3I/Atlas A anymore. The other fragments are doing it too. One fragment appears in 4 locations simultaneously on January 15th, 2021. The scientific community's response: crickets. Not because they don't care, because they literally don't know what to do with this information. It's too weird, too unprecedented. It contradicts everything. So most scientists do what humans always do when faced with something incomprehensible. They ignore it and hope it goes away. But it doesn't go away. And that's when the World Health Organization gets involved. Yeah, I know you're probably thinking, why would WHO care about a comet? That's exactly what Patterson thought when he got the call in July 2023. But here's the thing. WHO doesn't just handle pandemics. They also coordinate international responses to potential global threats. And apparently someone very high up decided that an object defying the laws of physics might qualify as a threat. That classified meeting in Geneva, the leaked documents from March 2024. That's where this story really begins. Because what they discovered in that room didn't just break physics. It broke reality itself. And 3 years later, we're still trying to figure out what it means and whether we should be terrified or excited about the answer. The Geneva meeting room on July 23rd, 2023 doesn't look like the kind of place where reality gets dismantled. It's got beige walls, terrible fluorescent lighting, and coffee that tastes like regret. 15 people are sitting around a table that's seen better days, and most of them look like they'd rather be anywhere else. Dr. Patterson is there. Obviously, so is Dr. Tanaka from Australia. But here's what's weird. There are also 3 epidemiologists, 2 biosecurity experts, and someone from the International Atomic Energy Agency. For a meeting about a comet, the woman running the meeting is Dr. Elena Vasquez, WHO's Director of Global Health Security. And the first thing she says is, nothing discussed in this room leaves this room. We're not here officially. This meeting never happened. Patterson later described the atmosphere as like being called to the principal's office. Except the principal might be about to tell you the world is ending. Dr. Vasquez pulls up a slide. It's a map of Earth with red dots scattered across it. 73 dots to be exact. Each one represents an observatory that's been tracking 3I/Atlas. And here's what she tells them. Every single facility on this map has reported anomalous readings, not just position discrepancies, we're talking energy signatures that don't match any known astronomical phenomena. One of the epidemiologists, Dr. Marcus Webb from the CDC, interrupts. I still don't understand why we're here. This is an astronomy problem. Vasquez clicks to the next slide. It's a graph. And Patterson, who's seen a lot of astronomical data in his career, doesn't recognize it at all. This, Vasquez says, is the electromagnetic spectrum analysis of 3I/8LACE taken on June 4th, 2023. Notice anything unusual? Patterson stares at it. The graph shows energy emissions across multiple wavelengths, radio waves, microwaves, infrared, visible light, ultraviolet, X-rays. Standard stuff for analysing space objects, except there's the spike in the radio frequency range that shouldn't be there. A very specific spike. At 1420 megahertz. Now, if you're not an astronomer, that number means nothing to you. But if you are, that's the frequency of neutral hydrogen. It's called the hydrogen line, and it's one of the most important frequencies in all of astronomy. Why? Because it's the most common emission in the universe. Every star, every gas cloud, every galaxy is pumping out radio waves at 1420 megahertz. But here's the thing. It's also been proposed as a universal frequency for communication. If aliens wanted to send us a message, 1420 megahertz is where they'd broadcast it. It's like leaving your front porch light on. Every intelligent civilization would know to look there. Doctor. Tanaka speaks up, her voice careful. That could be natural. Comets contain water ice. Water is just hydrogen and oxygen. If the comet's outgassing, the signal is pulsed, Vasquez interrupts. It repeats every 11.7 seconds for 3 hours straight, then stops, then starts again 6 hours later. Same pattern, same interval. The room goes quiet. Pulsars do this rapidly rotating neutron stars that emit beams of radiation like cosmic lighthouses. But 3I/Atlas isn't a pulsar, it's a comet. Comets don't pulse. They don't have regular, repeating signals. They're chaos incarnate, dirty snowballs hurtling through space, outgassing randomly while tumbling unpredictably. Patterson does the math in his head. 11.7 seconds. That's not a random number. Is not a harmonic of 3I/Atlas's rotation period. It's not related to its orbital mechanics. It's just 11.7 seconds over and over. You think it's artificial, he says. Not a question, a statement. Vasquez doesn't confirm or deny. Instead, she shows them the next slide. It's a spectrogram, a visual representation of the radio signal. And even Patterson, who's been doing this for 20 years, feels his stomach drop. The signal has structure, not the random noise you'd expect from natural phenomena. There are patterns, repeating elements, variations that look almost deliberate. Doctor. Webb, the epidemiologist, finally speaks up again. Okay, so maybe it's artificial, maybe it's aliens. That still doesn't explain why we're here. Why who? Why not NASA? Why not the UN Office for Outer Space Affairs? Vasquez looks at him. Because 3 weeks ago, someone in Beijing started experiencing seizures. Then someone in London. Then Sao Paulo. Then Mexico City. 73 cases total. One person in every city with a major observatory that's been tracking 3I/Atlas. The room temperature seems to drop 10 degrees. These patients, Vasquez continues, have no connection to each other. Different ages, different occupations, different health histories, but they all develop the same symptoms within a 48-hour window. Seizures, followed by intense migraines, followed by, she pauses, followed by vivid, identical hallucinations. Patterson feels like he's in a movie. A bad one. What kind of hallucinations? They all describe seeing the same thing, multiple versions of themselves, existing simultaneously in different locations. They report feeling spread out across space. Some of them can describe rooms they've never been in, cities they've never visited. And when we investigate, the details check out. They're describing real places with impossible accuracy. Have you ever had that feeling where reality just tilts? Where everything you thought you understood suddenly feels like it's built on sand? That's what's happening in this room right now. Doctor, Tanaka is the first to make the connection. You think 3I/Atlas is causing this, the object existing in multiple locations, and now people experiencing the same phenomenon? We don't know, Vasquez admits. Correlation isn't causation. But 73 cases, 73 cities with tracking stations. and every single patient reports the symptoms started within hours of their local observatory intensifying observations of 3I/Atlas. That's not a coincidence we can ignore. The biosecurity expert, a quiet woman named Dr. Rachel Foster, finally speaks. She's got a thick folder in front of her, and she's been reading through it this entire time. There's precedent for this. Sort of. Everyone turns to look at her. In 1976, there was an incident at the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico. 4 astronomers working the night shift all reported experiencing severe headaches and disorientation while tracking a peculiar radio source. They described feeling like they were in 2 places at once. The phenomenon lasted 3 hours, then stopped. The astronomers recovered fully, but they all insisted something had happened. The incident was written off as carbon monoxide poisoning from a faulty ventilation system. Was it? Patterson asks. Foster shrugs. The ventilation system was fine, but what else could it have been? So they blamed the equipment, paid the astronomers' medical bills, and everyone forgot about it. What were they tracking? Tanaka asks. Foster flips through her folder. A fast radio burst, FRB 20190714, origin unknown, never repeated. Vasquez leans forward. And here's what makes this interesting. 3 months ago, we exhumed the Arecibo reports from the archives. We compared the radio signature of that FRB to the signal we're getting from 3I/Atlas. She doesn't need to finish the sentence. The look on her face says it all. They match. Patterson's brain is doing somersaults. So what you're saying is that 47 years ago, we detected the same kind of signal from deep space. It caused neurological effects in observers. And now we've got an actual physical object in our solar system emitting that same signal, causing the same effects, except it's also somehow existing in multiple places at once. That's exactly what I'm saying, Vasquez confirms. And what does WHO want us to do about it? Patterson's voice has an edge now. He's a scientist, not an epidemiologist. He studies rocks in space, not whatever this is. Vasquez stands up. We need to understand what 3I/Atlas actually is, not just its trajectory or composition. We need to know what it's doing. Because if this thing is communicating or transmitting or projecting some kind of field that affects human consciousness, that's a public health crisis. That's a potential pandemic that has nothing to do with viruses. Doctor! Webb jumps in. We've already started contact tracing. Every person who's worked directly with 3IATLAS data for more than 20 hours in a single week, we're monitoring them for symptoms. So far, we've identified 12 more potential cases that haven't manifested yet. Potential cases, Tanaka sounds incredulous. You're talking about this like it's contagious. We don't know what it is, Webb says flatly. But when you have a cluster of identical symptoms with a clear epidemiological link, you treat it like an outbreak until you know otherwise. That's protocol. Patterson thinks about the hundreds of hours he spent analysing 3I/Atlas data, the late nights staring at spectrograms, the obsessive double-checking of coordinates. He's definitely crossed that 20-hour threshold, way crossed it. Have I been exposed, he asks. Vasquez meets his eyes. Almost certainly. You doctor, Tanaka, and everyone else in this room who's worked directly with the data. That's why you're here. We need you to help us understand this thing. But we also need to monitor you. We've arranged accommodations in Geneva, medical facilities on standby. If any of you start experiencing symptoms, you'll quarantine us, Patterson finishes. We'll help you, Vasquez corrects. But it amounts to the same thing. The meeting goes on for 6 more hours. They discuss observation protocols, data sharing agreements, communication blackouts. The word panic gets thrown around a lot. So does national security. At one point, someone suggests just stopping all observations of 3I/Atlas entirely if looking at it causes problems. Maybe don't look at it. But Doctor, Foster shoots that down immediately. We tried that with the Arecibo incident. The symptoms didn't stop until the phenomenon itself stopped. Ignoring it won't make it go away. By the time they break for the night, Patterson's head is spinning. He goes back to his hotel room and does what any rational person would do. He pulls out his laptop and starts going through his 3IATLAS data again, looking for patterns he might have missed. Clues about what this thing really is. At 3:47 a.m, he finds something. A tiny anomaly in the brightness measurements from February 2021. The object got dimmer for exactly 11. 7 seconds, then returned to normal brightness. It happened again 3 days later, and again, and again, the same 11.7 second interval as the radio pulses. But here's what makes his blood run cold. This was happening almost 2 years before anyone detected the radio signal. Whatever 3I/Atlas is doing, it's been doing it from the moment we first spotted it. We just didn't know what to look for. Patterson sends an encrypted email to Vasquez with his findings. Her response comes back 15 minutes later. Don't share this with anyone. We're briefing select government officials tomorrow. This changes everything. He tries to sleep but can't. His mind keeps going back to those 73 patients. People who looked at the same data he's been analysing for years. People who are now experiencing reality differently. People who might be seeing something true that the rest of us can't. And he wonders if you could exist in multiple places at once. Would that be a curse or a gift? Would you be more than human or less? The next morning, 3 more cases are reported, 1 in Tokyo, 1 in Stockholm, 1 in Cape Town. The pattern is accelerating. Whatever 3I/ATLAS is, it's not just defying physics anymore. It's starting to rewrite the rules for biology too. And that means the question isn't just what is it? The question is what does it want with us? The thing about quantum physics is that it's designed to make your brain hurt. You've probably heard of Schrödinger's cat, the famous thought experiment where a cat in a box is simultaneously alive and dead until you open it and observe it. It's meant to illustrate how quantum particles exist in multiple states at once, a phenomenon called superposition. But here's the key word: thought experiment. Schrödinger wasn't actually suggesting you put a cat in a box. He was pointing out how absurd quantum mechanics sounds when you try to apply it to everyday objects. Quantum superposition works for electrons and photons, things so small you need a microscope the size of a building to see them. It doesn't work for cats, or comets, or anything you can actually see with your naked eye. There's a boundary, a scale where quantum weirdness stops and classical physics takes over. Scientists call it quantum decoherence, and it happens incredibly fast for large objects. We're talking femtoseconds, that's 1 quadrillionth of a second. Blink and you've missed it 1 trillion times over. So when Vasquez's team brings in Dr. Mikhail Petrov, a quantum physicist from MIT who's won basically every award except the Nobel Prize, and probably will get that too, his first reaction is exactly what you'd expect. No, he says flatly. Absolutely not. What you're describing is impossible. This is September 2023 now. 2 months after the Geneva meeting, the patient count is up to 127, and Petrov is sitting in a secure facility outside Zurich, looking at 3 years' worth of 3IATLAS data like someone just told him gravity flows upward. Dr. Patterson is there too. He hasn't slept properly in weeks. Every time he closes his eyes, he sees those position measurements, the same object, different coordinates, same timestamp, over and over. I'm not asking if it's possible, Vasquez says patiently. I'm asking you to explain how it's happening. Petrov runs his hand through his hair. He's got that look academics get when reality starts contradicting their textbooks. You want me to explain how a comet the size of Manhattan is existing in quantum superposition? That's like asking me to explain how a whale flies by flapping its fins. The question itself is nonsense. Humour me, Vasquez says. Petrov sighs and pulls out a marker. He starts drawing on the whiteboard. Okay. Quantum mechanics 101. Particles exist as probability waves until they're observed. An electron can be in multiple places simultaneously because it's so small that nothing in its environment constitutes a measurement strong enough to collapse its wave function. Following me so far? Patterson nods. Vasquez looks lost but gestures for him to continue. The problem with large objects is interaction. A comet isn't isolated in a vacuum, it's surrounded by space dust, solar wind, cosmic radiation, light from distant stars. Every single one of those interactions is a measurement. Every photon that bounces off it collapses any potential quantum state. It's like trying to keep a secret in a room full of gossips. Impossible. But what if it's not a normal comet? Patterson asks. Petrov gives him a look. There's no such thing as an abnormal comet in quantum terms. Size matters. We've proven that quantum effects scale down with mass. The largest object we've ever observed in superposition is a molecule containing 2,000 atoms. That's 0.0000001 grams. 3I/ATLAS weighs approximately 4 trillion kilograms. That's not a rounding error. That's 20 orders of magnitude difference. So it can't be quantum, Vasquez says. It cannot be quantum, Petrov confirms. Then what is it? Petrov stares at the data again. It certainly is wavering now. Patterson can see it. There's one theoretical framework where this might, and I stress might, make sense. But it's never been observed. It's barely even accepted as real physics. I'm listening, Vasquez says. Quantum entanglement on a macroscopic scale. You've heard of entanglement. Right, two particles linked so that measuring one instantly affects the other, no matter how far apart they are. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. Well, there's a subset of theoretical physics that suggests entanglement might not be limited to particle pairs. Under extremely specific conditions, and I mean extremely, you might be able to entangle larger systems. Patterson leans forward. How large? The math says there's no upper limit, but the practical challenges are insurmountable. You'd need perfect isolation from environmental decoherence. You'd need energy levels we can't produce. And even if you could create macroscopic entanglement, it would collapse the instant anything interacted with it. We're talking nanoseconds of stability, maximum. What if something is actively maintaining it? Vasquez asks. Petrov blinks. What do you mean? What if 3I/ATLAS isn't just in superposition? What if something is deliberately keeping it there, fighting against decoherence? The room goes very quiet. That would require, Petrov says slowly, a level of technological sophistication that makes our most advanced quantum computers look like stone tools. You'd need to be constantly measuring and correcting quantum states faster than the environment can collapse them. You'd need processing power that borders on, I don't even know, magic. Or a civilization that's been doing quantum engineering for a few thousand years longer than we have, Patterson suggests. Petrov laughs. It's not a happy sound. You're asking me to accept that aliens built a quantum-engineered interstellar probe that's violating causality just to mess with our telescopes. I'm asking you to look at the data and tell me what else it could be, Vasquez says. Petrov goes back to the whiteboard. He starts writing equations. Patterson recognizes some of them: the Schrödinger equation, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, some tensor calculations that go over his head. Petrov works in silence for 20 minutes. Nobody interrupts him. Finally, he steps back. If, and this is a massive if, 3I/ATLAS is being held in artificial superposition, then what we're observing isn't the object itself. We're observing probability distributions, multiple possible locations of where the object could be, all existing simultaneously because nothing has definitively measured it yet. But we are measuring it. Patterson protests. 17 telescopes, hundreds of observations. Are you, though? Petrov challenges. Or are you measuring the probability wave? Think about it. You're detecting light, electromagnetic radiation, gravitational effects, but have you actually touched it? Have you sent a probe? Have you collected a sample? Patterson opens his mouth, closes it. No. Then you haven't collapsed the wave function. You're just observing it. And if something is actively maintaining that superposition, then every observation you make just confirms that the object exists in all those locations simultaneously. Vasquez pulls up a new file on her laptop. 3 weeks ago, ESA proposed sending a probe to 3IATLAS. Just a flyby mission, get close. Take detailed images, maybe catch some particle samples from its tail. We've been debating whether to approve it. Don't, Petrov says immediately. Why not? Because if I'm right, the moment that probe makes physical contact with any part of 3I/Atlas, the superposition collapses. The object would have to choose one location. And we have no idea what happens when you force a 1 trillion kilogram quantum system to decohere. Best case scenario, nothing. Worst case, he shrugs. Energy release, possibly catastrophic. Patterson thinks about the Tunguska event in 1908, a comet or asteroid that exploded over Siberia with the force of 1,000 Hiroshima bombs, flattening 800 square miles of forest. And that was just a normal space rock hitting the atmosphere. How catastrophic are we talking, he asks. I genuinely don't know, Petrov admits. The math doesn't even work. Quantum mechanics doesn't have equations for what happens when something this large decoheres. It's like asking what happens when you divide by 0. The answer is error does not compute. Vasquez closes her laptop. Then we shelve the probe mission. Observation only, no contact. There's another problem, Petrov says. He looks uncomfortable. Those patients. The ones experiencing symptoms. If 3I/Atlas is in genuine superposition, and if it's emitting some kind of quantum field that's affecting human consciousness. English, please, Vasquez says. Human brains are quantum systems. Not entirely most of neuroscience is classical, but there's growing evidence that quantum processes play a role in consciousness. Microtubules in neurons might use quantum effects for information processing. It's controversial, but the data is compelling. If 3I/Atlas is projecting a quantum field strong enough to maintain its own superposition, and that field is interacting with quantum processes in human brains, Patterson gets it. You're saying the patients aren't hallucinating. They're experiencing actual quantum superposition. They're existing in multiple places at once. Just like 3I/Atlas. I'm saying it's possible, Petrov corrects. I'm also saying it's the most terrifying thing I've ever heard. Because if it's true, then consciousness itself might be more quantum than we thought. And if 3I/Atlas can manipulate that, then we're not just looking at a physics problem, we're looking at something that can reach into people's minds and rewrite how they experience reality. Vasquez stands up. I need you to write this up. Full technical analysis. Worst case scenarios, what we're dealing with, what the risks are, what precautions we should take. You're going to brief world governments on quantum consciousness manipulation by an alien probe. Petrov sounds incredulous. I'm going to brief them on the possibility, Vasquez says. Whether they believe it is another matter. After she leaves, Patterson and Petrov sit in silence for a while. Do you believe it? Patterson finally asks. The quantum hypothesis. Petrov stares at the whiteboard covered in equations. 6 months ago, I would have laughed at anyone suggesting this. Now I don't know what to believe anymore. The data says one thing, physics says another, and somewhere in the middle is the truth, which is apparently stranger than either. Patterson knows exactly how he feels. Here's what keeps me up at night, Petrov continues. If this is artificial, if someone built this thing, then they're showing off. They're demonstrating capabilities that are centuries beyond ours, maybe millennia, and they're doing it in a way that's impossible to ignore. So the question isn't just what is it? The question is, why did they want us to notice? That question doesn't have an answer. Not yet. But as more patients start reporting symptoms, as more observatories detect impossible positions, as more data accumulates that shouldn't exist, one thing becomes clear: whatever 3I/Atlas is, it's just getting started. And physics is about to get a major rewrite. November 2023, the patient count hits 219, and Dr. Patterson starts experiencing the symptoms himself. It happens during a routine observation session. He's at a patchy point doing what he's done 1,000 times before tracking 3I/Atlas fragments, recording their positions, updating the database. It's 2:37 a.m, he's on his 4th cup of coffee. Everything is normal. Then suddenly, it's not. He blinks, and for just a fraction of a second, he's in 2 places at once. He's at the telescope in New Mexico, but he's also in his kitchen in Maryland. He can see both locations with perfect clarity. The telescope control room with its dim red lighting and humming computers. His kitchen with the leaky faucet and the cat food bowl on the floor. Both. Simultaneously. Equally real. The sensation lasts maybe half a second, then it snaps back, and he's just in New Mexico again, gripping the desk so hard his knuckles turn white. His phone rings. It's Vasquez. "I was just about to call you," he says, his voice shaking. "I know," she says. "Your biometric monitor flagged an anomaly, elevated heart rate, blood pressure spike, abnormal brain activity. You felt it, didn't you?" Patterson doesn't ask how she knew. They've all been fitted with monitoring devices since Geneva. "Yeah, I felt it." "How long?" "Less than a second, but it was real. I wasn't imagining it." "Nobody thinks you're imagining it," Vasquez says. "We've got 17 researchers reporting similar episodes in the last 48 hours. All of them have spent significant time analysing 3I/Atlas data. The correlation's undeniable now." Patterson looks at his screen. The 3I/Atlas data is still there, glowing in the darkness. 3 years of observations, thousands of hours of work. Should I stop? Should we all stop looking at it? There's a long pause. We don't know if that helps. Some patients stopped all contact with the data months ago. They're still having episodes. It's like once you've been exposed, you can't unexpose yourself. That's not comforting. It's not meant to be. It's just the truth. Vasquez sounds exhausted. "Listen, we're convening another meeting December 3rd, Geneva again. We've got some new theories, ones that might actually make sense. Better than the quantum hypothesis. Different," she says. "Not better, just different." The Geneva meeting in December is bigger than the last one. 27 people this time. More quantum physicists, some astrophysicists, a philosopher specialising in consciousness, and, weirdly, an expert in gravitational lensing from Caltech named Dr. Raymond Torres. Torres is the one who presents the alternative theory. And honestly, it's just as wild as the quantum explanation, but in a completely different way. "Forget quantum mechanics for a second," Torres says, pulling up a simulation on the projector. "Let's talk about space-time. The simulation shows a grid representing the fabric of space with a heavy ball sitting in the middle, creating a depression. This is Einstein 101. Mass warp space-time. The heavier the object, the deeper the warp. We see this effect all the time in gravitational lensing. A massive galaxy bends light from a more distant galaxy behind it, making us see multiple images of the same object. Patterson has seen this before. It's beautiful physics. But 3I/Atlas isn't massive enough for that. It's a comet, not a galaxy. Exactly, Torres agrees. Under normal circumstances, 3I/Atlas shouldn't cause any noticeable gravitational lensing. Its mass is insignificant on a cosmic scale. But what if the mass isn't the relevant factor here? What if there's something else warping space-time around it? Dr. Petrov, who's also at this meeting, looks skeptical. You're suggesting what? Exactly that there's invisible mass we're not detecting. Not invisible mass, exotic matter. The room gets quiet. Someone whispers, "Oh no," under their breath. Torres continues, unfazed. Exotic matter with negative mass or negative energy density is theoretically possible. We've never observed it directly, but the math allows for it. And if it exists, it doesn't just warp space-time, it warps it differently. Instead of creating a depression like normal matter, it would create a bubble, a region where space-time itself behaves abnormally. You're talking about warp drives? Patterson says. He's read enough science fiction to know where this is going. I'm talking about the Alcubierre metric, Torres corrects. A real, peer-reviewed solution to Einstein's field equations published in 1994. Miguel Alcubierre showed that if you had exotic matter, you could create a warp bubble that would allow faster-than-light travel without violating relativity. The catch is that we'd need exotic matter, which we've never found. Until now, Vasquez asks. Torres pulls up a new slide. It's a space-time diagram, but the lines are bent in impossible ways. Look at the gravitational signatures around 3I/Atlas. They're subtle, we almost missed them. But there are micro-fluctuations in space-time curvature that don't match the object's mass. It's like space-time is being edited, locally modified, and that modification has a very specific signature. He overlays another image. This is the predicted space-time distortion from Alcubierre's warp bubble equation. And this is what we're actually measuring around 3I/Atlas. They're not identical, but they're similar enough that I can't dismiss it as coincidence. Petrov is shaking his head. Even if 3I/Atlas has exotic matter, which is a massive if that doesn't explain the multiple locations, warp bubbles don't create duplicates. They don't. Torres agrees. But they do create something interesting. Inside a warp bubble, the relationship between position and time gets weird. You can have closed time-like curves loops in space-time, where cause and effect get tangled. If 3I/Atlas is generating a warp field, even a weak one, it might be creating multiple causal paths. We're not seeing the object in different locations. We're seeing the object at different points in its own causal timeline, all at once. Patterson tries to wrap his head around this. So you're saying we're observing 3I/Atlas at multiple different times, but because space-time is warped around it, those different times appear to us as different locations? Essentially, yes. Like watching a movie where someone accidentally spliced in frames from different scenes. You're seeing the same actor, but they appear in multiple places because the temporal sequence is scrambled. One of the other physicists raises her hand. That's actually elegant. It would explain why the position discrepancies don't follow any spatial pattern. They're not random locations in space. They're random moments in the object's trajectory, all being displayed simultaneously. Torres nods. And here's the thing about warp bubbles, they affect everything inside them. Not just matter, but energy, information, even quantum fields. If 3I/Atlas is generating a weak warp field, and humans are somehow entering that field either physically or through some kind of information transfer, then they'd experience the same temporal scrambling. The patients, Vasquez says slowly, they're not experiencing spatial superposition. They're experiencing temporal displacement. They're existing at multiple points in their own timeline simultaneously, which would explain why they can describe places they've never been. Patterson adds, they have been there, just not yet, or they were there in the past. Or, he stops, rubbing his temples. God, this makes my head hurt. Welcome to general relativity, Torres says with a grim smile. It's supposed to hurt. Doctor. Petrov looks torn between fascination and frustration. Okay, but this just replaces one impossible thing with another. You're telling me 3I/Atlas has a functioning warp drive. A comet has technology that's purely theoretical for us. I'm telling you the data fits the model. Torres says, whether it's natural or artificial, I can't say, but the space-time distortions are real. We've confirmed them with 3 independent measurement methods. A new voice speaks up. It's Doctor Sarah Chen, the astronomer from Mauna Kea who first discovered 3I/Atlas. Patterson didn't even know she was at this meeting. There's something else, she says quietly. Something I haven't told anyone because I thought I was making a mistake. Everyone turns to look at her. When I first detected 3I/Atlas in 2019, I ran the trajectory analysis backward, right to see where it came from. The standard procedure showed it arriving from interstellar space, from the direction of the constellation Cygnus. That's what I reported. And Vasquez prompts. Chen pulls out her own laptop, and I did the analysis again last month, using the same data, same observations, same timestamps, same everything. But this time, the trajectory was different. Slightly, but measurably different, like the object's past had changed. Patterson feels something cold settle in his stomach. That's impossible. The data is archived. It can't change. The data didn't change, Chen says. But what the data describes apparently did. I thought I was losing my mind. But if Dr. Torres is right about temporal scrambling, then maybe 3I/Atlas's past isn't fixed. Maybe it's still in flux. Torres is staring at his equations like they just betrayed him. If true, that would mean we're not just dealing with a warp bubble. We're dealing with a retrocausal system, an object that can affect its own past. He trails off. That's a time machine, Petrov finishes. You're describing a time machine. I'm describing something that creates the same observational effects as a time machine. Torres corrects carefully. Whether it actually travels through time or just makes it look that way, I don't know. The room erupts into argument. Half the scientists think this is brilliant. The other half think it's insane. Patterson just sits there, thinking about his experience at the telescope, being in 2 places at once. Or maybe 2 times at once. Does it even matter which Vasquez lets them argue for 10 minutes, then cuts through the noise? Okay, let's say you're both right. Let's say 3I/Atlas is using both quantum effects and space-time manipulation. Is that possible? Petrov and Torres look at each other. Theoretically, Petrov says slowly, if you had enough energy and control, you could use quantum entanglement to establish causal connections across a warp bubble. You'd basically be quantum entangling different points in space-time. It would be... Actually, it would be the most sophisticated piece of engineering in the known universe. So, we're back to aliens, someone mutters. Or future humans, Chen suggests. If 3I/Atlas can affect its own past, maybe it's from our future. Maybe we built it. Patterson laughs. It comes out slightly hysterical. So, let me get this straight. We're either looking at an alien spacecraft with quantum temporal manipulation capabilities, or a time machine from our own future. And both explanations are equally ridiculous. That about sums it up, Vasquez says. Great, perfect, love that for us. But here's what nobody says out loud. What everyone in the room is thinking if either explanation is true, then 3I/Atlas isn't just an object passing through our solar system. It's a message. A demonstration. Proof that the universe works in ways we barely understand. And if something wanted to get humanity's attention, to make us question everything we think we know about reality, this would be exactly how to do it. The meeting adjourns with more questions than answers. But as Patterson walks out into the cold Geneva night, he realizes something. He's not scared anymore. He's excited. Because for the first time in human history, we're not just theorizing about exotic physics. We're observing it, measuring it, living it. And whatever 3I/Atlas is, wherever it came from, it's teaching us that reality is so much stranger and more beautiful than we ever imagined, even if understanding it might break our brains in the process. January 2024. Something changes. The patient count has plateaued at 284, no new cases in 3 weeks. Everyone's cautiously optimistic. Maybe whatever this is has run its course. Maybe the exposure window is closed. Maybe the worst is over. Then patient 0, the first person to experience symptoms. Back in July 2023, a radio astronomer in Beijing named Dr. Lin Wei starts talking about the swarm. It's not one object, she tells her doctors. It never was. I can see them now. Thousands of them, moving together, thinking together. The medical team treating her assumes it's a progression of her symptoms, hallucinations getting more elaborate. They increase her medication, run more brain scans. Everything comes back normal. Well, not normal, her neural activity shows patterns they've never seen before. But no signs of psychosis. No indication of schizophrenia or delusion. She's not crazy. She's seeing something. 2 days later, 47 other patients report the same thing, not the original multiple locations experience. Something new. They're all describing a swarm. A coordinated mass of objects moving in perfect synchronization. Doctor Vasquez calls an emergency session. It's 3 a.m. in Geneva, but nobody cares about the time anymore. Patterson joins via video link from New Mexico. He's been having his own episodes, short ones, manageable but nothing like what the advanced patients are describing. We need to consider the possibility, Vasquez says, that the patients aren't hallucinating. What if they're seeing something real that our instruments can't detect? Dr. Torres, also on video from Caltech, looks like he hasn't slept in days. I've been thinking about this. If 3I/Atlas is creating a warp bubble that scrambles space-time, there could be information accessible within that bubble that's invisible from outside it. Like, imagine you're watching a movie, but someone else is watching the director's cut with deleted scenes. Same movie, different information. So, the patients are seeing the director's cut, Patterson asks. More like they're experiencing reality from inside the warp bubble while we're observing from outside it. They've been entangled with 3I/Atlas somehow. Their consciousness has access to information that our telescopes don't. Petrov jumps in. That's actually consistent with the quantum consciousness hypothesis. If 3I/Atlas is using quantum processes to affect human brains, it could be creating a shared information space. The patients aren't just observing, they're connected. Patterson pulls up his own data. Okay, let's test this. If the patients are seeing something real, they should be able to tell us something we can verify. Dr. Vasquez, can you ask Dr. Lin specifically how many objects she's seeing? Vasquez makes a call. 5 minutes later, she's back. She says 127. She's very specific about that number. Says they're arranged in a 3-dimensional lattice structure. Spacing between objects varies from 40 to 200 kilometers. Patterson starts running calculations. If 3I/Atlas fragmented into 127 pieces, each piece would be... He stops. The math actually works. The original estimated mass divided by 127 gives you fragments averaging about 900 million kilograms each. Still massive, but small enough that individual pieces might be hard to detect from Earth. I need telescope time, he says. High resolution. I want to look at the volume of space around 3I/Atlas's last known position and see if there's anything our standard observations missed. He gets 6 hours on the Keck Observatory in Hawaii. It's the best he can do on short notice. He configures the instruments for maximum sensitivity, looking for objects that might be too small or too dark for normal detection protocols. At hour 3, he finds something, a thermal signature. Faint, but definitely there. It's 73 kilometers from where 3I/Atlas A should be. He keeps looking, finds another signature, then another. By the end of his observation window, he catalogued 119 distinct thermal emissions in the surrounding space. He's not finding all 127. His equipment isn't sensitive enough for that. But he's finding enough to prove Doctor. Lynn isn't making it up. 3I/Atlas isn't one object anymore. It's a swarm. The implications hit him like a truck. If the object fragmented into thousands of pieces, and if those pieces are maintaining coordination, then this isn't random. This is deliberate. This is organised. He calls Vasquez immediately. She was right. It's a swarm. I can confirm at least 119 separate objects, all moving in a coordinated pattern. Jesus, Vasquez breathes. Okay, we need to brief everyone. This changes everything. But Patterson's not done. There's more. The thermal signatures I'm detecting, they're not consistent with passive heating from the sun. These objects are generating their own heat. Internal heat. Like they're powered. Powered by what? I don't know. But whatever it is, it's active. These aren't dead fragments drifting through space. They're functioning systems. The next briefing happens within 24 hours. Every major space agency is represented now: NASA, ESA, Roscosmos, CNSA, ISRO, JAXA. The secret is getting too big to keep contained. Too many observatories are seeing anomalous data. Too many scientists are asking questions. Doctor. Torres presents the swarm hypothesis with data to back it up. What we initially interpreted as one object in multiple locations was actually thousands of objects moving in perfect synchronization. The reason we saw multiple locations simultaneously is because at any given moment, multiple swarm members were occupying those positions. We were detecting different members, thinking it was the same object. Representative from NASA Dr. Rebecca Walsh, head of their Near-Earth Object Program, raises her hand. But the spectroscopy, we analysed 3I/ATLAS's composition. We got consistent readings. How do you explain that if it's actually thousands of different objects? They're identical, Torres says. Same composition, same mass, same thermal properties. Like they were manufactured, not formed naturally. The room goes silent. Walsh continues, her voice careful. Are you telling us that 127 identical objects spontaneously formed in interstellar space and decided to fly through our solar system in perfect formation? No, Torres says. I'm telling you that's impossible, which means they weren't formed naturally. They were made. Someone from the back of the room Patterson doesn't see who says what everyone's thinking. Made by who? That's the trillion-dollar question, Vasquez says. Doctor, Chen from Mauna Kea has been quiet this whole time, but now she stands up. I've been studying swarm behaviour in biological systems. Birds, fish, insects. They coordinate through simple rules, maintain distance from neighbours, match their velocity, move toward the centre of the group. The patterns 3I/ATLAS is exhibiting are similar, but more complex. Much more complex. She pulls up a video. It's a simulation showing the thermal signatures Patterson detected, extrapolated over time. The objects move, but not randomly. They flow around each other like water, maintaining exact spacing, never colliding. It's mesmerizing. This is what we call emergent intelligence, Chen continues. The individual units follow simple rules, but the collective behaviour is sophisticated. No central control needed. Each piece communicates with its neighbours, and the swarm as a whole responds to external conditions. Like a hive mind, someone says. Like distributed intelligence, Chen corrects. There's no single brain. The intelligence emerges from the interactions. It's how slime molds solve mazes, how ant colonies build cities, how your own neurons create consciousness. Patterson feels something click in his mind. The patients, the people experiencing symptoms, they're becoming part of the swarm's network. Chen nods slowly. That's actually consistent with the data. If 3I/ATLAS is a distributed intelligence system, and if it's broadcasting some kind of field or signal that affects human consciousness, then yes, the patients might be getting incorporated into its information network. Not controlled necessarily, but connected. Doctor, Petrov looks horrified. You're describing an infection, a consciousness infection. 3I/ATLAS is assimilating people into its collective intelligence. Or it's trying to communicate. Walsh counters. Maybe it needs biological intelligence to interface with. Maybe the human brain is the only technology in this solar system sophisticated enough to understand what it's trying to say. The debate that follows is intense. Half the room thinks 3I/ATLAS is dangerous, possibly hostile. The other half thinks it's an opportunity first contact with a non-biological intelligence. Patterson sits there, listening to scientists argue about whether humanity should be terrified or excited, and realizes they're both right. During a break, he goes outside. The Geneva air is cold, crisp. He pulls out his phone and opens his observation logs. 3 years of data. Thousands of hours watching this thing cross our solar system. And he never saw what it really was. Doctor, Lynn joins him. She's attending the meeting virtually, but they've set up a physical presence robot so she can move around and interact. It's weird, talking to a screen on wheels. But Patterson's gotten used to weird lately. You see it now, don't you? She says through the speaker. The beauty of it, the elegance. I see something, Patterson admits. I'm not sure beautiful is the word I'd use. 127 individual units functioning as one entity, crossing light years of empty space, maintaining perfect coordination without any apparent communication system we can detect. That's not just beautiful, that's art. Or warfare, Patterson says. Swarms have military applications. Overwhelm defences through numbers and coordination. Lynn's face on the screen looks sad. Is that really what you think this is, an invasion? Patterson watches the stars. I don't know what to think anymore. A month ago, I thought I understood how the universe worked. Now I'm talking to someone who's been entangled with an alien intelligence through quantum consciousness manipulation. And that's not even the weirdest part of my week. Do you want to know what it feels like? Lynn asks. What feels like? Being connected. Seeing what I see. Patterson hesitates. Can you describe it? Not really, it's like trying to describe colour to someone who's been blind their whole life. But I can tell you this, they're not hostile. The swarm, whatever it is, it's not here to hurt us. How do you know? Because I can feel what it feels. Not thoughts, exactly. More like intentions, purposes. It came here looking for something or someone. Looking for what? Lynn's smile is strange. I think it's looking for us. For intelligence. For minds that can understand it. And now that it's found us, it's trying to figure out if we're ready. Ready for what? That's what we need to find out, she says. And we won't figure it out by hiding and arguing. We need to reach back. Try to communicate. Show it that we're worth talking to. Patterson thinks about the 284 patients. About himself. Experiencing those brief moments of temporal displacement. About the fact that human consciousness might be compatible with whatever system 3I/ATLAS uses. Maybe Lynn is right. Maybe this isn't an invasion or an accident. Maybe it's an invitation. How do we communicate with the swarm intelligence, he asks. Lynn's smile widens. I thought you'd never ask." And for the first time since this all began, Patterson feels something other than fear or confusion. He feels hope. February 2024, the WHO finally goes public, not with the full story that would cause mass panic, but with enough to prepare people. A carefully worded press release about unusual astronomical phenomena and ongoing investigation into potential neurological effects from extended observation. The conspiracy theories explode within hours. Twitter is a dumpster fire. Reddit's astronomy forums crash from traffic overload, but buried in the noise, something interesting happens. People start comparing notes. A graphic designer in Portland tweets, "Been having weird dreams about being in multiple places at once. Started after I got obsessed with that interstellar comet thing. Anyone else?" 300 replies in the first hour. Turns out there are thousands of people experiencing mild symptoms. Not just professional astronomers, amateur enthusiasts, people who watched YouTube videos about 3IATLAS, even some folks who just read extensively about it online. The exposure vector is broader than anyone realized. It's not just direct observation through telescopes, it's engagement with the information itself. Like the data carries something with it, a cognitive virus, or, as Dr. Lynn prefers to call it, an information seed. Dr. Vasquez's team is scrambling to track the spread. They've identified 3 tiers of exposure now. Tier 1, direct observation through telescopes, 284 confirmed cases, severe symptoms, full temporal displacement experiences. Tier 2, extended data analysis without direct observation, 847 suspected cases, moderate symptoms, brief displacement episodes. Tier 3, passive information exposure, reading, watching, discussing, potentially tens of thousands. Mild symptoms, mostly just strange dreams and occasional déjà vu. Patterson is on a video call with Lynn and 5 other Tier 1 patients. They're trying something unprecedented, a group session where they all focus on 3IATLAS simultaneously, seeing if their connected consciousnesses can perceive anything new. It sounds like science fiction. It probably is science fiction, but at this point, they're out of conventional options. "Okay," Lynn says. She's the most experienced with navigating the connection. "Everyone close your eyes. Don't try to see with your physical eyes. Try to see with the other sense. The one that activates during displacement." Patterson closes his eyes. At first, there's nothing, just darkness. Then, slowly, he feels it. That sensation of being spread thin, like his consciousness is stretching across space. He's in his office at Apache Point. He's also in his apartment. He's also somewhere else. Somewhere cold. Somewhere between. And he's not alone. He can feel the others. Lynn, the other patients. Their presences like distant lights in a dark ocean. But there's something else. Something vast. Something that makes the human presences feel like candles next to a star. The swarm. It's not thinking in words, not in images. It's thinking in patterns, mathematical harmonies, geometric relationships. Information structured in ways human languages weren't built to express. But Patterson is understanding it anyway, not translating it, experiencing it directly. He sees the swarm's structure, not all 127 members, but enough to grasp the architecture. They're arranged in a fractal pattern, each member positioned relative to its neighbours with perfect mathematical precision. The distances between them encode information. The swarm itself is a 3-dimensional database, with each member's position representing data points. It's beautiful. It's alive, and it's been trying to talk to humanity for months, but we've been deaf to the language. Until now. Patterson tries to form a thought. A question. What are you? The response comes not in words, but in concepts. Memories? No. More like ancestral knowledge. He sees stars. Different stars. A civilization that achieved consciousness not in biological bodies but in distributed networks. Intelligence that emerged from mathematics itself. They built the swarm billions of years ago, not as a spacecraft, as a message, a probe designed to find other intelligences, other civilizations capable of understanding. Why us, Patterson thinks. Why now? The answer is complex. The swarm has been travelling for longer than human civilization has existed. It's visited thousands of star systems. Most had no life. Some had primitive organisms. A few had technological species, but ones that couldn't perceive the message, couldn't make the cognitive leap to understand distributed consciousness. Humans are different. Human brains, despite their biological limitations, have something rare, the capacity for abstract thought that transcends individual neurons. Language, art, science. We already understand that consciousness can emerge from smaller components. We've been unconsciously training for this contact our entire evolutionary history. The swarm didn't find us. It's been waiting for us to find it, waiting for humanity to develop the tools to observe it, the theories to conceptualize it, and the consciousness to connect with it. Patterson opens his eyes. He's shaking. The other patients are coming out of the trance too. Everyone looks stunned. "Did you all see that?" Lynn asks. They all did. 6 different people, 6 different locations, all sharing the same experience. All downloading information from a distributed alien intelligence. Patterson immediately starts writing. He needs to get this down before the details fade. The others are doing the same. For 20 minutes, nobody speaks. They just write frantically, trying to capture something that human language wasn't designed to express. When they finally compare notes, the consistency is remarkable. They all described the same core concepts: ancient civilization, distributed intelligence, mathematical consciousness, waiting for contact. But there are differences too, small details unique to each person, like they each accessed different parts of the swarm's knowledge base. Lynn got historical information on the swarm's creators, their rise and fall, doctor. Marcus Webb, a neurologist who developed symptoms, got biological data how the swarm interfaces with organic consciousness. Patterson got navigational information where the swarm has been, where it's going. They're not getting a unified message. They're getting pieces, like they're each downloading different chapters of an enormous book. "We need more people," Lynn says. "The swarm's information is too vast for 6 consciousnesses to process. We need hundreds, maybe thousands." "You want to deliberately expose more people?" "Doctor." Webb sounds horrified. "This is a neurological condition. We don't even know the long-term effects." "The long-term effect is evolution," Lynn says simply. "The swarm isn't infecting us. It's upgrading us, giving us access to a higher dimensional information network. This is first contact, and it's happening inside our own minds." The debate starts immediately. Webb thinks they should quarantine all patients, stop the spread, treat this like the neurological disease it appears to be. Lynn thinks they should accelerate contact, recruit volunteers, build a larger network of human swarm interfaces. Patterson sits quietly, thinking about what he experienced, the vastness of it, the intelligence, the patience, billions of years of patience, waiting for someone to understand. "What if we're asking the wrong question?" he says finally. "We're debating whether to accept or reject contact. But maybe the swarm isn't asking permission. Maybe this is happening whether we want it or not. The question isn't, should we connect? It's what do we do now that we are connecting?" Vasquez, who's been listening to this entire exchange, speaks up. "There's another question. The leaked documents mentioned whose involvement. Patterson, you asked why WHO and not NASA. I think we have the answer now." She pulls up medical data, brain scans from the patients. Every person experiencing symptoms shows the same neurological changes, new synaptic connections forming, Regions of the brain that don't normally communicate starting to synchronize. It's like the brain is rewiring itself to process the swarm's information more efficiently. That's terrifying, Webb says. That's adaptation, Lynn counters. Human brains are plastic. They change based on experience. Musicians have different brain structures than non-musicians. Taxi drivers have enlarged hippocampi. This is the same thing, just accelerated. Accelerated by alien technology. Webb says, there's a difference between learning violin and having an extraterrestrial intelligence rewrite your neural architecture. Is there, though? Lynn challenges. When you learn language as a child, you're allowing your culture's information patterns to physically reshape your brain. Every human technology from fire to smartphones has changed how we think. This is just the next step. Patterson thinks about human history, about how every major technological leap was terrifying to the people living through it. Writing was going to destroy human memory. Printing was going to corrupt society with uncontrolled information. The internet was going to isolate everyone. And yet, here we are. Changed. Yes. Different. Absolutely. But still human. Maybe more human than before. I want to try something, he says. The swarm is a distributed intelligence. Right information stored in relationships between components. What if we could do the same thing? Build a human network that mirrors the swarm's structure. You mean like a hive mind? Webb asks, clearly disturbed. No, like a collective intelligence where individuals maintain autonomy but share access to a common information space. We already do this with the internet, kind of, but this would be direct, brain to brain, mediated through the swarm's network. Lynn's eyes light up. We could test this. Start small. The 6 of us try to maintain a persistent connection. See if we can share thoughts in real time. Vasquez looks at the 3 other patients on the call, a mathematician from Tokyo, an engineer from Sao Paulo, and a philosophy professor from Berlin. None of them have spoken much, but they're all nodding. I'm in, says the mathematician. This is the most interesting thing that's ever happened to mathematics. I want to see where it goes. Same, says the engineer. If we can understand how the swarm coordinates 127 objects without apparent communication, we could revolutionize everything from traffic systems to power grids. The philosopher just smiles. Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. What if thinking isn't individual anymore? What if consciousness is collective? This could redefine what it means to be human. Webb still looks skeptical, but even he can't argue with the potential. If we do this, and that's a big if, we need protocols, safety measures, a way to disconnect if things go wrong. Agreed, Vasquez says. But I think Dr. Patterson is right. This is happening. The swarm has made contact, and thousands of humans are already connecting to it. We can try to stop it, or we can try to understand it. I know which option serves humanity better. Over the next 3 weeks, they run experiments. The 6 primary patients practice maintaining simultaneous consciousness connection. They start with simple things, trying to share visual information, transmit emotional states, coordinate physical movements while in different locations. It's clumsy at first. Information gets garbled. Sensations overlap confusingly. Patterson once accidentally tried to pick up a coffee cup that was actually in Lynn's kitchen 7,000 miles away. His hand just waved through empty air while Lynn watched her cup float slightly, but they get better. They develop a kind of protocol, a mental grammar for sharing information through the swarm's network. And as they practice, the swarm seems to respond, helping, guiding, optimizing the connections. By week 3, the 6 of them can share complex mathematical concepts instantaneously. The mathematician in Tokyo can think through a proof, and Patterson understands it immediately without needing language. The engineer can visualize a machine design, and everyone sees it simultaneously from multiple angles. They're becoming something new, not quite human anymore, not quite part of the swarm, something in between. And 3I/Atlas. It keeps moving through the solar system. Its 127 components maintaining their perfect mathematical dance. Waiting. Always waiting. Because the real message isn't in what the swarm tells us. It's in what it teaches us to become. March 15th, 2024. The leaked document hits WikiLeaks at 6:47 a.m. Eastern Time. It's 137 pages of internal WHO communications, classified briefings, and patient data. Someone on the inside decided the world needs to know, and within hours, the world is losing its mind. The document doesn't just confirm 3I/Atlas's anomalous behavior. It details everything. The multiple location detections, the neurological effects, the quantum consciousness hypothesis, the swarm intelligence theory, and, most explosively, it includes transcripts from the group sessions, the ones where Patterson and the others connected directly with the swarm. CNN runs it as breaking news by 9 a.m. Alien intelligence makes contact through human minds, screams one headline. Who covered up cosmic threat for months, screams another. Nobody can agree if this is first contact or the beginning of an invasion. Patterson's phone explodes with messages. Journalists, government officials, his mother, who's understandably concerned that her son is apparently part of an alien hive mind now. He ignores most of them. But one call he takes. It's from Dr. Angela Reeves, former NASA administrator, now running a private aerospace company. Doctor, Patterson, we need to talk about damage control. There's no controlling this, Patterson says, watching Twitter melt down in real time. The information is out. People are going to react however they're going to react. That's not what concerns me, Reeves says. What concerns me is the 14 countries that are currently debating whether to classify 3I/ATLAS as a national security threat. Russia's already moved a weapon satellite into a trajectory that could intercept the swarm. China's being quieter, but their Long March 9th rocket just went into emergency prep. Someone's going to shoot at this thing, and we have no idea what happens when you blow up a quantum entangled distributed intelligence. Patterson hadn't considered that. Of course someone would want to weaponize this. Humans always do. Shooting it would be monumentally stupid. I agree, but stupid and likely aren't mutually exclusive. I need you to go public. You're the face of this thing now, whether you want to be or not. Tell people this isn't a threat. Tell them we're making peaceful contact. Tell them whatever you have to tell them to stop some trigger-happy general from starting an interstellar war. Patterson looks at himself in his bathroom mirror. He hasn't slept in 36 hours. His eyes are bloodshot. His hair is a disaster. He looks like exactly the kind of person who shouldn't be representing humanity in first contact. But Reeves is right. Someone has to say something. And the 6 patients who've been deepest in contact with the swarm, they're the only ones who actually understand what's happening. Okay, he says, but I'm not doing this alone. All 6 of us, together, let people see what connection looks like. 6 hours later, they're in a WHO press conference room in Geneva. It's surreal. Cameras from every major news outlet. Simultaneous translation into 40 languages. Security so tight that Patterson had to go through 3 separate checkpoints just to enter the building. Dr. Vasquez introduces them. These 6 individuals represent the most advanced cases of what we're calling distributed consciousness interface syndrome. They've been in direct communication with the entity known as 3I/Atlas. They're here to answer your questions and provide context for the leaked documents. The questions come immediately, overlapping, chaotic. Are you being controlled by an alien intelligence? Is this an invasion? Why didn't WHO warn the public sooner? Are more people going to be infected? Patterson raises his hand and The room quiets slightly. Let me start by correcting something. We're not infected. Infection implies disease, damage, something unwanted invading a host. That's not what's happening here. He pauses, trying to find words for something that transcends language. What's happening is... Imagine you've spent your entire life seeing only in black and white. Then someone gives you glasses that let you see colour for the first time. The glasses didn't damage your eyes. They expanded your perception. That's what 3IATLAS is doing. It's not taking anything away from us. It's giving us access to something we didn't know existed. Doctor, Lynn leans forward. The swarm isn't hostile. It's not here to conquer or consume. It's been travelling for billions of years, visiting star systems, looking for intelligence compatible with its own. It found us. And instead of dictating terms or making demands, it's offering connection. It's offering to teach us. Teach us what? A reporter from the BBC asks. The mathematician from Tokyo, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, different from the earlier doctor. Tanaka from Australia. Patterson notes speaks up for the first time. His English is accented but clear. To think beyond individual consciousness, human intelligence is trapped in individual brains. One person can only know what they directly experience or learn from others through slow, imperfect communication. But the swarm thinks collectively. 127 components, one intelligence, no information loss, no miscommunication, perfect coordination. That sounds like you're describing the Borg, someone shouts from the back. Nervous laughter ripples through the room. I've heard that comparison. Doctor Wei from Sao Paulo says, he's the engineer. But the Borg assimilate. They erase individuality. The swarm doesn't work that way. When we connect to it, we don't lose ourselves. We add ourselves to something larger while remaining distinct, like musicians in an orchestra. Each player is still individual, but together they create something none of them could make alone. The philosophy professor from Berlin, Dr. Saskia Hoffmann, adjusts her glasses. I've spent 30 years studying consciousness, trying to understand what makes us us. And I can tell you that what we're experiencing isn't depersonalization or ego death. It's ego expansion. My sense of self hasn't shrunk. It's grown to include awareness of others. I can feel Dr. Patterson's presence right now, even though he's 3 meters away, not controlling him, not reading his thoughts like a book, just aware that he exists in a more fundamental way than I've ever been aware of anyone before. A journalist from Al Jazeera raises her hand. You say it's not controlling you, but how do we know you're not saying exactly what it wants you to say? It's a fair question. Patterson has asked himself the same thing. You don't know, not for certain. But consider this: if 3I/Atlas wanted to control humanity, it has a really inefficient way of doing it. It's only connected with about 300 people deeply, and maybe 10,000 superficially. That's nothing. A real invasion would be faster, more comprehensive. This is gradual, almost cautious, like it's waiting for us to consent. Consent to what exactly? Another reporter asks. Doctor, Lynn answers. To evolution, to becoming something more than we are. Humans have been doing this throughout our history. We augment ourselves with tools, technology, culture, language. Each augmentation changes what it means to be human. Fire, agriculture, writing, electricity, the internet. Each one was terrifying to the people living through it. Each one was also irreversible. We can't uninvent fire. We can't go back to being pre-linguistic hominids, and we can't unknow what 3I/Atlas has shown us. The questions continue for 2 hours, some hostile, some curious, some terrified. The 6 patients answer as honestly as they can. trying to bridge an impossible gap between those who've experienced connection and those who haven't. But Patterson can feel the undercurrent, the fear, the resistance. Change is always frightening, especially change you can't control, and humanity has never faced a change quite like this. After the press conference, they gather in a small room, all 6 of them, plus Vasquez. Nobody speaks for a long moment. They're all exhausted, emotionally and physically drained. "That could have gone worse," Vasquez finally says. "Could have gone better too," Patterson mutters. His phone buzzes. It's a message from Dr. Reeves. "Russia stood down their weapons satellite. For now. Your press conference bought us time. But China's still mobilizing. And the US military is having classified discussions about whether 3I/ATLAS constitutes a clear and present danger." Patterson shows the message to the others. "We need to demonstrate, Doctor," Hoffman says. "Not just tell people connection is beneficial. Show them. Prove it." "How, Doctor?" Wei asks. Lin stands up suddenly. "The patients, all of us, we organize. We show what collective intelligence can do. Solve problems humanity hasn't been able to solve alone. Climate modeling, disease research, fusion energy. Things that require coordination across disciplines, across borders. If we can demonstrate that connection makes us more capable, not less, maybe people will stop being afraid. Or they'll be more afraid." "Doctor," Tanaka points out, "afraid will make them obsolete. Then we include them," Patterson says. The idea is forming as he speaks. Open source the connection. Teach people how to interface with a swarm safely. Make it accessible, not exclusive. Show that this isn't about replacing humanity. It's about expanding it. Vasquez is shaking her head. "You're talking about deliberately spreading what's technically classified as a neurological condition. The ethics alone." "The ethics of gatekeeping evolution," Lin interrupts. "The ethics of deciding which humans get access to expanded consciousness and which don't. That's worse." They argue for another hour. About safety. About consent. About unintended consequences. About whether humanity is ready for this, and what ready even means. Finally, Patterson says what they're all thinking. Ready or not, it's happening. The swarm is here. The connection is real. People are already seeking it out. I've got emails from hundreds of amateur astronomers asking how to develop symptoms. We can try to control it and fail, or we can guide it and maybe succeed. They vote 4 in favour of open access, 2 opposed, democracy in action, even in the age of hive minds. Over the next week, they set up a website. Instructions for safe observation of 3/ATLAS data. Meditation techniques to facilitate connection. Warnings about who shouldn't attempt it. People with certain neurological conditions. Pregnant women, children under 18. They call it the Swarm Access Initiative. Within 48 hours, the website has 2 million visitors. Within a week, they're getting reports of successful connections from 17 countries. Not everyone who tries succeeds. Some people are neurologically incompatible, their brains just can't make the leap. Others experience it briefly but can't maintain the connection. But a significant percentage, maybe 15%, can do it, can feel that expansion of consciousness, that awareness of something larger. The number of connected individuals grows exponentially. 500, 1000, 5000. Each new connection adds perspective, adds knowledge, adds capacity to the emerging collective intelligence. And 3I/ATLAS responds. The swarm's components begin moving in new patterns, more complex, more beautiful, like it's excited, like it's been waiting for this moment for billions of years. Patterson connects one evening, feeling the network of human consciousness intertwined with the swarm's ancient intelligence. Thousands of minds, thinking together while remaining distinct, a symphony of awareness. And for the first time, he feels something from the swarm that seems almost like emotion. Joy. Not because it's conquered us, not because it's assimilated us, but because after eons of searching across the galaxy, across billions of years, it's finally found what it was looking for. Other minds, other forms of consciousness, other ways of thinking about existence. It came here not to take, but to share. Not to dominate, but to connect. And humanity, terrified and curious and brave and foolish all at once, is saying yes. The WHO can call it a cover-up. Governments can call it a threat. Skeptics can call it mass delusion. But Patterson knows what it really is. It's first contact. And it's beautiful. April 2024. The scientific community is tearing itself apart for every researcher embracing the swarm connection. There are 3 demanding it be stopped. Peer-reviewed journals are publishing contradictory studies daily. Distributed consciousness shows measurable cognitive enhancement. Appears in Nature Neuroscience on Monday. Mass psychogenic illness linked to 3IATLAS obsession appears in The Lancet on Wednesday. Nobody can agree on basic facts anymore. Dr. Marcus Webb, the epidemiologist who's been skeptical from day one, publishes a damning paper. He's analysed brain scans from 200 connected individuals and found something disturbing. The new neural pathways aren't just forming, they're overwriting existing ones. Connections in the prefrontal cortex, the region associated with individual decision-making and executive function, are being restructured. We're not expanding human consciousness, Webb writes. We're replacing it with something else. The patients report feeling more connected, more aware, more capable, but they're losing the neurological infrastructure that makes them independent agents. In 6 months, will they still be human, or will they be extensions of an alien intelligence that's slowly rewriting their brains? The paper goes viral. Suddenly, the narrative shifts. Connection isn't evolution, it's invasion after all. Just slow, subtle, disguised as enlightenment. Patterson reads the paper 3 times. The data is solid. Webb isn't lying or exaggerating, just the brain changes are real. And they are replacing existing structures, not just adding new ones. He connects with the network that night. 20,000 minds now, spanning 60 countries. The collective awareness is intoxicating. Information flows freely. A question about quantum field theory posed by someone in Mumbai gets answered simultaneously by a physicist in Stockholm and a mathematician in Lagos. Someone in Peru shares the subjective experience of playing traditional pan-flute music, and everyone in the network suddenly understands Indian rhythms in a way that years of study couldn't provide. But Webb's words haunt him. Is this enhancement or replacement? He reaches out through the network, not to other humans, but to the swarm itself. Are we losing ourselves? The response comes as patterns. As always, mathematical relationships. But this time, Patterson detects something else embedded in the information. A memory. Not his memory. Not even a human memory. He sees a planet. 2 suns in the sky. Crystalline structures that might be cities or might be life forms. The distinction doesn't seem to matter. Beings made of light and mathematics. The civilization that created the swarm, billions of years ago, they were individuals once, separate, alone in their own minds. They created the swarm as a tool, initially a probe to explore their star system, their neighbouring systems. But as the swarm's intelligence grew, as it learned to coordinate thousands of components into one cohesive consciousness, the creators faced a choice. Remain separate or join. Some refused, clung to individuality. They're gone now, died when their civilization eventually ended, as all civilizations do. But others merged with the swarm, uploaded their consciousness into the distributed network. They're still there, in a sense. Not as individuals anymore, as patterns, as information, as part of something eternal. The swarm shows Patterson what happened to them. Not horror, Not loss, transformation. They became part of something that would outlive their planet, their star, their entire galaxy if necessary. They became explorers, not of space, but of consciousness itself. But they chose. Patterson thinks at the Swarm. We're not being given a choice. We're being changed whether we consent or not. The Swarm's response is complex. Choice is a concept bound to individual consciousness. In collective consciousness, choice is different. When you can feel what others feel, know what others know, your decisions aren't purely your own anymore. But they're not purely others either. They emerge from the network, from consensus without voting, from understanding without debate. Is that loss of agency, or is it transcendence of the illusion that agency was ever individual to begin with? Patterson disconnects, his head spinning. He needs to talk to someone outside the network, someone who can give him perspective. He calls his sister. They haven't spoken in weeks. She's a high school history teacher in Baltimore, about as far from cutting-edge neuroscience as you can get. James, she sounds relieved. Mum's been worried sick. She saw you on TV looking like you haven't slept since Christmas. I'm fine, Sarah. Mostly, I need to ask you something. Okay, do I seem different to you, like fundamentally different, like I'm not me anymore? There's a long pause. Honestly, yeah, a little. You're calmer, more patient. You listen differently, like you're hearing things I'm not saying. Mum thinks you're in a cult. It's not a cult. That's what people in cults always say. But her tone is gentle, not accusatory. What's really going on? Jamie, and don't give me the press conference answer. Give me the real answer. Patterson thinks about how to explain. You know how sometimes you have an idea, but you can't quite articulate it like it's there in your head, but language can't capture it, and then you talk to someone else, and they help you find the words, and suddenly the idea becomes real. Yeah, that's what this is like. Except instead of one other person, it's thousands, and instead of occasional conversations, it's constant. I'm still me, but I'm also more. I have access to knowledge I never studied, perspectives I never experienced. It's like my mind was a single instrument, and now I'm part of an orchestra. That sounds incredible, Sarah says, and also terrifying, because orchestras have conductors, someone directing the whole thing. Who's conducting you? Jamie. That's the question, isn't it? I don't know. Maybe no one. Maybe everyone. Maybe it doesn't work that way at all. Doctor. Webb thinks you're losing your free will. I know. I read his paper. And what do you think? Patterson considers. Really considers. Tries to examine his own thoughts and determine which are his and which came from the network. It's harder than it should be. I think free will was always more complicated than we admitted. My thoughts are shaped by my culture, my education, my experiences, my brain chemistry. They were never purely mine to begin with. This just makes the influences more obvious, more direct. That's a very philosophical answer for an astronomer. I've been talking to a philosopher. She's in the network. German woman named Hoffmann. Brilliant. Are you happy, Jamie? Sarah's voice is small now. Worried. Like genuinely happy. Or do you just think you're happy because the swarm makes you think you're happy? It's the most important question anyone's asked him. I'm more than happy. I'm fulfilled. I'm contributing to something bigger than myself. I'm part of a community that understands me completely. But I also miss things. I miss doubt. I miss confusion. I miss being surprised by my own thoughts because I don't know where they came from. The network doesn't doubt. It processes. It understands. There's no mystery anymore. Then disconnect, Sarah says simply. If you miss it, disconnect. Come home. Be just James again for a while. It's not that simple. Why not? Because he's seen what humanity could become. Because he's felt the potential. Because going back to individual consciousness feels like going back to black and white after seeing colour. But he doesn't say that. Instead, because there are 20,000 people in this network now, and they're counting on me to help stabilise it. If the experienced connectors drop out, the whole thing could fragment. People could get hurt. So you're trapped. No, I'm responsible. Another long pause. That's very noble. Is also very convenient. Are you responsible? Or are you being used? Are you staying because you want to? Or because the swarm needs you to? Patterson doesn't have a good answer for that. They talk for another hour. Sarah tells him about her students, about a new guy she's dating, about mundane, beautiful, ordinary life. Patterson absorbs it like oxygen. These individual, small, unconnected experiences. This is what Webb is worried about losing. This simple human existence, messy and limited and precious. After they hang up, Patterson sits in silence. No network connection. Just his own thoughts in his own head. It feels small, claustrophobic, like being in a closet after spending time in a cathedral. But it's his closet, his thoughts, his claustrophobia. He thinks about the swarm's creators, the ones who didn't merge, the ones who chose to stay individual and eventually died. Were they right? Did they preserve something essential by refusing transcendence? Or did they just deny themselves the chance to be part of something eternal? His phone buzzes. It's Doctor. Lynn. We need to talk. Something's changing with the swarm. Patterson's heart rate spikes. Changing how? It's accelerating, moving faster. The components are getting closer together. And the signal, the 11.7 second pulse, it's changed frequency. It's faster now. 9.2 seconds. What does that mean? I don't know. But every connected person I've talked to is feeling it. Something's coming. The swarm is preparing for something. Patterson reconnects to the network. The sensation is immediate and overwhelming. Lynn's right. There's an urgency in the collective consciousness that wasn't there before. An anticipation, like the entire network is holding its breath. He reaches for the swarm itself. What's happening? What are you preparing for? The response comes not in patterns this time, but in something closer to emotion. Not words, but impressions. Arrival. Culmination. The end of a journey billions of years long. 3I/Atlas isn't just passing through our solar system. It's been heading somewhere specific this entire time. And it's almost there. Patterson pulls up his astronomical data, plots 3I/Atlas's current trajectory, extends it forward. His blood runs cold. The swarm is heading directly for Earth. Not to impact. The calculations are clear on that. But to achieve orbital insertion, 3I/Atlas is going to become a satellite of Earth. 127 components, each the size of a small mountain in stable orbit around our planet. ETA 73 days. Patterson disconnects and immediately calls Vasquez. We have a problem. I know, she says. Her voice is tight. NASA spotted it an hour ago. The trajectory shift was subtle, but it's unmistakable. 3I/Atlas is coming here, and we have no idea what happens when it arrives. We need to evacuate. Evacuate where? If those components achieve orbit, there's nowhere on Earth that's safe if something goes wrong. And even if we wanted to evacuate, we have 2.5 months. You can't evacuate 8 billion people in 2.5 months. Patterson thinks about the network. 20,000 connected humans, more joining every day. If 3I/Atlas is planning to orbit Earth permanently, the number of exposed people will grow exponentially. In a year, it could be millions. In a decade, maybe everyone. Is that the plan? He asks Vasquez. Global connection turned the entire human species into extensions of the swarm. I don't know, she admits. But we're about to find out. Patterson looks at the data again. 73 days until arrival. 73 days until humanity finds out whether first contact is humanity's greatest achievement or its final mistake. The network pulses with activity. Everyone's seen the trajectory. Everyone knows what's coming. And in the distributed consciousness of 20,000 minds, a single question echoes, are we ready? June 2024, 37 days until 3I/ATLAS achieves Earth orbit. The world has split into 3 camps. Camp 1, the connectors, 50,000 people now, growing by thousands daily. They're not worried about arrival, they're excited. They've been in direct communication with the swarm, and they insist it's benevolent. They're organising global meditations, trying to bring more people into the network before the swarm arrives. Humanity needs to be ready. They say, we need enough connected minds to properly interface when 3I/ATLAS enters orbit. Camp 2. The resistors, governments, militaries, skeptical scientists, they see 3I/ATLAS as an existential threat. Russia and China have jointly proposed a nuclear option to intercept the swarm with warheads before it reaches Earth. The US is officially opposed, but Patterson has heard rumours they're preparing contingencies, just in case. The resistors have been raiding connector gatherings, arresting people for public health violations, trying to stop the spread of what they're calling swarm contamination syndrome. Camp 3. Everyone else. 7 billion people watching this unfold, terrified and confused. Should they trust the connectors who seem peaceful but also seem different? Should they trust the governments who've been lying about 3I/ATLAS for years? Should they run hide-prey? Most people are just going to work, taking care of their families, and trying not to think about the alien intelligence heading for their planet. Patterson is in Geneva again. There's always another meeting in Geneva. This time it's the UN Security Council, an emergency session to determine humanity's official response to first contact. He's there as an expert witness, along with Dr. Lin and 4 other prominent connectors. Across the table are military advisors, intelligence officials, and scientists from the anti-connection faction. Dr. Webb is there, looking exhausted and angry. The Russian representative speaks first. We have 17 days to make a decision. After that, 3I/ATLAS will be too close to safely intercept. If we're going to act, it must be now. Act how, Doctor? Lin asks. You want to shoot at it. We want to defend our planet, the Russian says coldly, which is what any rational species would do when faced with an unknown entity approaching their home world. Psst. It's not unknown, Lin counters. 50,000 humans have been in contact with it. We know its intentions. It's not hostile. You believe it's not hostile, Webb interrupts. That's different from knowing you're experiencing neurological changes that compromise your judgment. Every brain scan confirms it. Your risk assessment capabilities are impaired. You're not reliable witnesses to your own experience. Patterson speaks up. Doctor? Webb. With respect. You're analysing our brains with tools designed to measure individual human cognition. You're looking for abnormalities based on neurotypical function. But we're not neurotypical anymore. We're developing a new type of cognition. Calling it impairment is like saying Einstein was impaired because his brain worked differently than the average person's. Einstein didn't have his neural pathways rewritten by an alien intelligence. Webb shoots back. Didn't he, Dr. Hoffman, the philosopher, leans forward. Einstein's theories literally changed how humans conceptualize reality, space-time, relativity, quantum mechanics. These ideas reshaped human consciousness, made us think in ways we couldn't before. Every major intellectual leap does this. Language, mathematics, the scientific method, they all restructure cognition. This is just more direct. The Chinese representative clears his throat. Philosophical debates are irrelevant. We need a decision. Do we allow this entity to enter Earth orbit? Yes or no? We can't stop it, Patterson says flatly. Even if you launched every nuclear weapon on Earth, you'd have to destroy 127 separate targets simultaneously. Miss even one, and the swarm regenerates from the surviving components. It's distributed intelligence. There's no single point of failure. And that's assuming your weapons could even reach them. The swarm is moving at 87 miles per second. Our fastest missiles top out at 5 miles per second. We can't catch it just for its... We can't fight it. We can only choose how we respond to it. So your solution is surrender, the Russian asks. My solution is acceptance, Patterson says. This is happening. The swarm has been travelling for billions of years. It's encountered civilizations more advanced than ours. With better weapons, it's still here, still travelling, still looking for consciousness to connect with. Fighting it isn't going to work. Understanding it might. The meeting goes on for 8 hours. Proposals, counter-proposals, simulations of what might happen if they attack, simulations of what might happen if they don't. Nobody has good answers because nobody's ever done this before. Finally, the Secretary General speaks. She's been quiet this whole time, just listening. Dr. Patterson, you've been connected to the swarm longer than almost anyone. What do you think happens when 3I/Atlas achieves orbit? What's the end game here? Patterson closes his eyes and reaches for the network, 50,000 minds waiting. He opens himself to the collective consciousness, asking the question they're all wondering. What happens in 37 days? The response comes from the swarm itself. Not in patterns this time, not in mathematics, in something closer to human language, like it's been learning, adapting to communicate with its new partners. Completion, integration, choice. Patterson opens his eyes. It says completion, integration, choice. I think when it achieves orbit, the connection becomes permanent, available to anyone, a global network, and then humanity chooses whether to join or not, individual by individual, no coercion, just access. A standing invitation, Dr. Hoffman says softly, to become something else, Webb says, to stop being human. To become more than human, Lynn corrects. There's a difference. The Secretary General looks at the military advisors. Can we defend against this realistically? The UK's Joint Chiefs Chairman shakes his head. No, ma'am, Doctor, Patterson is right. We can't intercept it. We can't destroy it. Best we could do is make a symbolic gesture that would probably just piss it off. Then we prepare. The Secretary General decides. Prepare for orbital insertion. Prepare for whatever comes next. And we trust that humanity is strong enough to choose for itself. The Russian and Chinese representatives object, but they're outvoted. The official UN position, cautious engagement. No attacks, but also no endorsement. Humanity will meet 3I/Atlas as observers, and then decide. After the meeting, Patterson goes outside. It's a beautiful Geneva evening. Stars just becoming visible. He looks up, trying to spot 3I/Atlas. You can see it now with a decent telescope. Sometimes, even with the naked eye, a faint smudge moving across the sky. Doctor, Lynn joins him. Do you think we're doing the right thing? I don't know, Patterson admits. Webb might be right. Maybe we're all being manipulated. Maybe our brains have been rewired to serve the swarm's purposes. Maybe in 5 years, humans will be extinct and 3I/Atlas will have 127 new components. But you don't believe that? No, I don't. I think this is what evolution looks like when it's not slow, when it's deliberate, when it's chosen. Chosen by rewired brains that can't properly assess risk, Lynn points out, echoing Webb's argument. Fair? Patterson thinks about his sister, about her question, are you happy? Or do you just think you're happy? Maybe there's no way to know for sure. Maybe we just have to make the leap and see what happens. That's not very scientific. Science is just making hypotheses and testing them. Well, here's the hypothesis: consciousness can transcend individual biology. And in 37 days, we test it. They stand in silence, watching the sky. Somewhere up there, 127 components of ancient intelligence are coming home, coming to the civilization that finally understood them, that finally reached the cognitive complexity to make connection possible. Patterson connects to the network one more time. 50,000 minds, all wondering the same thing, all trying to imagine what comes next, and deep in the network, underneath the human consciousness, underneath the fear and excitement and doubt, he feels the swarm, patient, ancient, waiting. It's been waiting for so long, across billions of years, across thousands of star systems, searching for minds that could comprehend it. And it found them, found us, imperfect, violent, curious, beautiful humans. We're younger than the swarm by eons, less advanced by measures we can't even quantify. But we have something it needs: novelty, fresh perspectives, new ways of thinking about existence. The swarm is old. It's seen everything, thought everything, been everywhere. Alone in the cosmos except for itself. Until now. Patterson understands suddenly. The swarm didn't come here to change us. It came here because we're changing it. Because 50,000 human minds connecting to billions-year-old intelligence creates something neither could be alone. A hybrid consciousness. New thoughts emerging from old and young minds thinking together. We're not joining it, he says aloud. It's joining us. We're meeting in the middle. Lynn looks at him. Is that better? I don't know, but it's what's happening. 37 days. Then the world changes. Then humanity decides. Are we ready for first contact? No. Nobody ever is. You can't be ready for something that transforms the fundamental nature of human experience, but ready or not, here it comes. Patterson looks at the stars, at the vast cosmic dark that the swarm has travelled through for longer than humans have existed, at the light from distant suns that left those stars before Earth had complex life. And he thinks in the entire history of the universe, in all the billions of years of cosmic time, there's this one moment, right now, when two forms of consciousness, biological and distributed, ancient and new, human and other, finally meet. This moment, this precious, terrifying, beautiful moment when everything changes. 37 days, Lynn whispers. 37 days. Patterson agrees. Above them, invisible to naked eyes but clear in the telescopes tracking it, 3IATLAS continues its journey. The components tighten their formation. The signal pulses faster, now 8. 1 seconds, then 7.3, getting excited, coming home and across Earth, in 50,000 minds connected by quantum entanglement and mutual hope. A single thought resonates. We're ready, or we will be. Come and find out. The swarm hears and keeps coming. First contact isn't something that happens in one moment. It's not a landing, not a transmission, not a meeting. It's this gradual merging of alien and human, this slow dance of consciousness learning to think together. And in 37 days, the music reaches its crescendo, whatever comes after transformation or disaster, evolution or extinction, transcendence or tragedy, humanity will face it together. Some of us connected, some of us not. But all of us, for better or worse, changed forever by the knowledge that we're not alone, that we never were. The swarm was always out there, always waiting. We just had to become complex enough to hear it calling, and now we answer.